You're listening to the Penny to the Pound podcast, brought to you by ClearStart Accountancy and Budgeting Services. We are talking today about something which is a hot topic at the moment, and it's IVAs. And we have Ian, who is the Insolvency Practitioner here at ClearStart. Now, if you tuned into the first podcast, you would have heard me talking to Fiaz Ashraf, who is the owner of the business. And we learned about his journey, about how he got to running the budgeting side of the business, which is really, really important to you, isn't it? Because of your own experiences.
Absolutely, yeah. It's important that, we create awareness so everyone is aware, what help is available to them out there and, what channels they can go down to achieve their financial goals.
And one of the things that's often talked about is something called an IVA. And you have a gentleman called Ian who works for you, who is your insolvency practitioner.
That's right, yes, that's right.
And you have many, many years in this field, 40 years of doing this type of work, haven't you?
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And your job is to look at the IVAs, but I really have no idea I have a basic idea, things that I might have read in the news. A friend of mine did one, but can you just explain to me what an IVA is?
Well, an IVA, it's a compromise between somebody who's in debt. First of all, they have to be insolvent, which means that effectively they owe more than they own.
Right.
So they've got to be insolvent. And it's a way of them reaching an agreement with the creditors over how they deal with the debt. So typically, if there are a number of options that people can go through, which obviously we take them through those options when we're talking to the client at the beginning. For example, the time-honoured way of dealing with with debt problems is bankruptcy. You've probably heard of bankruptcy.
Yeah, it always feels a bit scary and extreme.
It is. Well, it's not really anymore. A lot of the stigma that used to be with bankruptcy has now gone.
Couldn't you go to prison or something years ago?
You used to, and in fact, you could be in the 17th century. You could be hanged.
What?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, goodness, they don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, it is. There would be, I think there'd be an action group that would.
It's everywhere telling people to not do that. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. So so what people can do is they can spend £680,
right?
File their own bankruptcy petition, and then that then means that the creditors can't take any legal action against them.
I've got so many questions. £680. Where do people get that money from?
Well, that's one of the problems. There is a well-known saying, you can't afford to go bankrupt, and a lot of people find that situation. Also, if they have any meaningful assets,
like a house,
if they've got equity in the house, that goes into the bankruptcy, gets sold, the creditors get paid. It's also a very expensive process as well.
Is the legislation around bankruptcy quite old as well?
It's the vast majority of insolvency law is relating to the Insolvency Act 1986, but bankruptcy goes back to the 18th century.
Wow! So
it's that's been the time-honoured way of dealing with it over the years. In 2009, the government came up with what's called a debt relief order, which you could call it a mini bankruptcy. Right. It's for people who can't afford to pay the bankruptcy fee, because currently, if your disposable income is less than £75 per month, your debts are less than £30,000, and you've got no assets, or the assets are £2,000 or less, then you can actually do what's called a debt relief order, which we in the trade know as a DRO, and that costs you £90. It's a one-off payment, and you also don't pay anything into the debt relief order.
Okay.
Again, both that both the DRO and the bankruptcy are run by the official receiver in bankruptcy, who you may have heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a government official.
Right.
So both of those, both bankruptcy and DRO, you would be dealing with the official receiver.
Okay.
And the DRO is a very good way of dealing with debt if you've got no assets to preserve, if your income isn't very high, so if it's less than £75 a month, you are...
That's the surplus money you've got after paying all your rent and everything.
That's right, yes.
Yeah.
So that's a very good way of dealing with your debt, and it's quick. You have to you can't just simply file a form. You have to go and see an intermediary, or you have to talk to an intermediary. There are a number of firms, Step Change, for example, they do them. Citizens Advice Bureau do them.
Do you do them here?
No, we don't. But what we do is there is another firm that does do these things, that is an intermediary, and we can signpost them there if need be.
And ultimately, one of the things that you do is an IVA.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So, Ian, what would you say are the benefits of an IVA?
The benefits of an IVA are you can. It's flexible. So an IVA means an individual voluntary arrangement.
Right.
Okay. So it is something that is bespoke to the individual. You can put in it. You can put whatever conditions you want in it. Although there are certain standard conditions that the creditors normally expect to see. Basically, what you do is, instead of introducing your assets like a pension scheme or house, you simply make voluntary contributions each month. It's not quite that simple, because you introduce the amount of money, or you pay each month the amount that you can realistically afford. And then every 12 months, your income and expenditure is reviewed.
Right.
And if your income has gone up, then your contributions have to go up. So at all times, you're having to pay in what you can afford. Conversely, if your income has gone down, then we can look to reduce your contributions as well.
Okay.
So, Ian, you would say, so if somebody qualified for a DRO would be a better solution than an IVA. So to qualify for a DRO, they have to have less than £2,000 worth of assets,
yes,
have less than £30,000 in debt,
yes,
and have a disposable income of less than £75.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Now, what about a bankruptcy then? So what are the sort of benefits of getting bankrupt versus an IVA? Am I right to assume here, and what experience tells me, with an IVA you can still hold your assets?
Yes, you can.
But with a bankruptcy, you have to release all the equity within that, correct?
Yes, you do. The other thing is also, in a bankruptcy, if you do have a disposable income, you will have to pay that into the bankruptcy for 3 years.
Got you.
So you may pay 3 years contributions, whereas an IVA, you're keeping out of the bankruptcy system,
yeah,
but then by convention you'll be paying for 5 years rather than just the 3 years into the bankruptcy.
So there's a lot of taboo at the moment in regards to the fees involved in an IVA.
Yes.
So as we know, there's a documentary coming out soon in regards to how insolvency practitioners or practices are charging the fees. So an IVA, someone has £10,000 worth of debt.
Yes.
They have £100 disposable income.
Yes.
Over the 5 years, it works out that they're paying £6,000 back.
That's right.
And at the end of the 60th month, the rest of the debt is written off.
The debt is written off at that point, yes.
Am I right to assume that the fees involved are within that £6,000 or on top of the 6,000?
No, they are within £6,000.
Wow, okay.
They are. What happens is that effectively, unless your contributions are enough to pay the creditors in full, the creditors have paid the fees.
Okay.
because they allow us to retain, they allow us to deduct our fees from contributions that the client has made before we pay them.
Sorry, I was just going to ask. It does seem to come round that there is a bit of controversial press about IVAs. Why is that? What do you think is the sort of, why have people got things against it? I can't get my head around that, because ultimately it's to help people.
Yes, it is to help people. It's also fair to say that most of the criticism of the IVAs are from people who don't do them.
We don't need them.
It's from most of the criticism comes from organisations that don't do them.
Right.
That don't do IVAs. They do something else. You've got to listen to what they say. There is the scope for. Well, if you take the question of fees, now standard fee for an IVA for 5 years worth of work is £3,650.
Right.
That's split into two bits, but I won't take you down that road at the moment. But if you contrast that with a bankruptcy, the official receiver's administration fee is £6,000.
Wow.
So a very good reason not to go bankrupt is if you want to pay the creditors something, because the official receiver, if you have got assets, the first £6,000 will go in settlement of his administration fee.
Yeah.
So it's a way, and a DRO, if you've got have a disposable income of £75 and you don't pay anything to the creditors, so the creditors get nothing. So an IVA, one of the purposes of an IVA is also to have a balance. The debtor makes his contributions and keeps his assets.
Yeah.
And the creditors get something.
Yeah, because ultimately, if you've got a credit card and you've spent, money on it, you may have bought a family holiday and you've enjoyed that, what you've had out of it, you've probably enjoyed. And, there is a responsibility for you. You've got to remember that, things that we buy, we do have a responsibility to pay for. This isn't all about saying, let's just not pay the creditors, and wave goodbye. They're big corporations who've got loads of money. But they do need to be paid. We need to take responsibility for things that we buy on credit cards, don't we?
Well, if everybody were to go if everybody who got a credit card were to go bankrupt, nobody else could ever get any money.
Right.
Because the banks would simply stop lending. Mm. And so it's keeping the economy going. And when it comes to all the IVAs in the country, the banks are recovering millions of pounds by way of dividends out of these IVAs. And so the banks are quite happy to see the IVAs, which is why we've agreed certain protocols with them. Uh-huh. And so certainly if there are certain ingredients that if an IVA proposal contains these ingredients, there's almost guaranteed acceptance. Mm. So it's one of these things that life is a two-way street, isn't it?
Mm.
One thing that puzzles me is, for example, a debt management plan. So if we go through the same scenario as before, client has £10,000 worth of debt, can afford to pay £100 a month based on their disposable income.
Yeah.
If somebody is on a debt management plan, they would have to pay 100% of that.
Yes. That's correct, yes.
Of the debt, and the interest and the charges are also not guaranteed to be frozen.
No, I think in the majority of debt management plans now, I think the bulk of the creditors do freeze the interest, but there is the odd one or two that
try it,
who go against the grain.
So versus an IVA then, where an IVA is 60 months, on a debt management plan, it could go for 10, 15 years, right?
Yes, it could.
Yeah. So it's all based on if the client qualifies for an IVA or DRO or bankruptcy.
Yes.
So one of the things that I've been reading into at the moment is that there's a certain debt charity out there that would do anywhere between 10 to 15,000 debt management plans per month.
Yeah.
but only like 50 to 60 IVAs a month. Now, when we looked into how that debt charity was being paid, because it's a charity for the client doesn't have to pay any fees. It's actually the creditor that pays that charity.
Yes.
So it's in the best interest for the creditor that's paying that charity for that charity. I mean, I'm assuming here, to have them all on debt management plans, because it gives a little bit more longevity, and it also means the client's paying back 100% of their debt. Whereas the IVA numbers aren't stacking up for them to only do 60. I mean, AFA Insolvency, we would do 300 to 400 IVAs per month.
Yes.
Versus a beast of a debt charity.
Why do you think is that in the best interest of the clients though?
That would depend.
Okay.
That would depend. It depends, as I say, it depends on a number of factors. If their income was less than £75, then you have to ask, why are they doing that? Why aren't they
You'd have to look at
debt
every
relief
individual
order?
case,
You have to look at, and this is the point where where you cannot generalise on these things, because it's an individual circumstance,
Case by case
basis. And we have people, I have in the past advised people that they should be doing a debt relief order, a DRO. They should do a DRO, but they want to do an IVA. And why do they want to do an IVA? Because for the very point that you made,
you friended one.
Pardon?
Someone's friended one.
No.
Oh.
Well, there's that one, but there's all, because friends do refer them in.
Yeah.
But there was also the thing where the client said, "Well, I borrowed the money. I want to pay some of it back."
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Or they want to be seen to be trying.
Yeah.
Because there's, you cannot legislate ethics.
And morals. Yeah.
People have.
One of the biggest taboos at the moment are how are these IVA sort of referrals coming in? So the FCA have banned packaging fees for FCA firms.
What the FCA stands for?
Financial Conduct Authority.
Right.
So they banned packaging fees come October for any, you cannot be paid by referring a client for a debt solution.
So basically a packaging fee is like a referral fee.
Yeah, like a referral fee, refer someone in. So one of the issues is, and the reasons behind it, is that they believe that people are being railroaded into IVAs and basically sold IVAs and not really selling the need, selling.
Yeah.
There
is a television advert running for IVAs, isn't there? I imagine that. Are they allowed to advertise on?
Yes.
TV?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And there are radio ads as well.
Right. Okay.
But my point being here now is that, yes, there are marketing companies out there. There are packaging companies out there that sometimes won't do the right job, or they are railroading somebody into a debt solution that really the other solution would have been better for them. So it's a sort of commercial understanding. But as an insolvency practice, we have checks and measures in place anyway. So, Ian, when a case is referred into us from an external party or wherever, can you just talk us through what sort of due diligence we do to ensure, number one, the client's on the right, come over in reasonable contemplation of an IVA and they fit that criteria? How do we manage that?
Well, first of all, we one of the first questions we ask the client is, has anybody told you what to say?
Oh, wow, do you?
Yes, we do.
Oh, I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, and the reason that you have to do that is that, of course, that then is one of the classic things, because if any referrer is going to try to pull the wool over our eyes, like for example, they have a creditor on there, or they
sat next to them while
they have a creditor on the list that they know votes against IVAs, and so all of a sudden it disappears from the list or something. Just in case, we want to make sure that there are no strokes being pulled.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that we ask them. Has anybody coached you
in that
what to say?
Do you how do you determine someone's capacity though? Do you have to check with them that they have the capacity to make a decision? Like, I mean, is that something you could do?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We ask them all sorts of questions about their vulnerability.
Right. Yep.
Because in essence, anybody who is in debt that they cannot pay is to a certain degree vulnerable.
Yeah, of course.
So you have to be alive to that, and you have to ask certain questions as to their vulnerability. You then have to do a lot of due diligence on the documentation that's been sent to you.
Mm-hmm.
We check the bank statements to see that the income and expenditure actually stacks up, because the last thing that we want is an IVA that fails in month 2.
Yeah.
We want IVAs that are going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way you're going to get that is to show that they actually do qualify for an IVA, and they're not something that's been dressed up to look like it.
Yeah.
It's got a quack and it's got to be a duck.
Yeah.
That's the way that it works. So we do due diligence on the paperwork. We look at the bank statements.
Yeah.
We then ask them again. We ask them about their assets. We ask them about the house. We then explain to them. We go through all the options. Mm-hmm. We go through the various solutions are 1, doing nothing, which we don't recommend. 2, informal agreement with the creditors. 3, debt management plan. 4, secured loan. 5, bankruptcy. 6, DRO. 7, IVA. We talk about the IVA last.
Okay.
But
because ultimately it's not a sales pitch.
It isn't a sales pitch. In fact, what it is, it's a structured discussion, which is set out, or we have to follow the rules in what's called a statement of insolvency practice, which is what our regulators put out.
I mean, a lot of this language is quite, posh in a way, but ultimately it's written in legislation. You said the Insolvency Act of 1986.
Yeah,
that's legislation that's written in law, and it has to be written in a certain way. So there is a degree of you having to refer to things in a certain way.
Yeah,
but you can always sort of translate them into layman's terms.
Yeah, well, we have our regulatory bodies issue statements of insolvency practice,
right?
Which is effectively they set standards for us to work to.
Okay,
and so that's what we have to follow when we are advising the clients.
Yeah.
So we put in all the checks and balances that we can. Okay, we might get one wrong now and again, but it's
you've got steps to follow, and so it's and they are legal steps.
And we record all our calls. So because in essence, if somebody then says, "Well, you didn't tell me this," we can prove that they did.
Yeah. Do you know what this is? I could talk to you forever about this. I actually thought, am I going to be interested in this? But yes, I am. It's fascinating, and you know so much.
Well, I know a bit, yes.
Do you feel lucky to have it?
Oh, absolutely. When we were looking for somebody to get involved with AFA Insolvency, we were growing fairly quickly, and we needed somebody with the experience that Ian holds and has, and his reputation as well, which is important. And diamond guy, great guy.
I just imagine, I don't know why, I get this feeling that you would treat people like you treat your kids, like when they phone up and they need something. I just get that feeling from you that if it was your son or daughter, you'd want to deal with them in the same way that, professionally, obviously, through legislation.
Yes.
But I just get that feeling from you. Like, I feel like I would be able to phone you and say, "Oh, look, I need this help. I don't know what to do." And you'd be able to tell me.
Well, yes. And I like to sleep at night.
Yes. Oh, that's so nice.
So what got you into IVAs, Ian? Like, why did you get involved?
Well, it's like I fell into insolvency 40 years ago.
That's quite a pull. What were you doing?
No, I was when I say that I went out. I was the firm I was working for. My office was one side of the corridor. The insolvency department was on the other side of the corridor. There were two people in it, and they got a job that came in that needed three people.
Oh, wow.
So that's how I actually got into it.
What's the biggest debt you've had to deal with?
The biggest debt, I suppose, really, it's many years ago now, but it was it was a corporate job. I worked on the colour roll receivership.
Okay.
Have you?
Is that a printer's?
No, it was colour roll. It was a wallpaper manufacturer, but they had owned all sorts of other things like Edinburgh Crystal and places, stuff like. And they had all these different businesses that we. So so I ran a wallpaper factory out in Blackburn for some time. So insolvency itself is been a very interesting line of work to be in because you no 2 days are the same.
And no two debt is the same.
No.
And situation that someone's in.
Yeah, I mean the vast majority of people that I've dealt with IVAs for, that I've done IVAs for, smashing people. You know, they're just regular people.
And one person's debt is so different to somebody else's. So I could have like $2,000 worth of debt, and that could be the world to me, whereas somebody else might have 20 grand, and that's the world to them. And it's relative, isn't it? Yeah,
and the more that people owe, the less it seems to bother them.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think we live in a world as well where, everybody expects to be able to go to Dubai and have Gucci handbags, and and I don't know how we've got that way. We're so materialistic, aren't we, in a way? But we all feel like we should be able to have it. Like I'll go to the Trafford Centre and see those yellow shopping bags and think, how have they afforded that? Yes. I could only just afford my McDonald's. Yeah. I can't get my head around that sometimes.
I do get that. I remember there was once a debt management firm who they put out a series of TV ads many years ago. This was when before debt management became actually popular. They had this. They showed this person on the phone talking to them about all the debts and that. Then they put the phone down, and then the next thing is on the beach. And it was so corny, but that's what that's
selling the dream.
Selling the dream.
The budgeting, obviously, which is one of the key parts of the business, Fiaz. Just going back to the budgeting, which is one of the key parts of the business, Fiaz. I suppose you actually do have to have some hard conversations with people about what they're spending money on.
Absolutely, yeah. It's again, it's a case-by-case basis, understanding someone's financial goal. And if they're living beyond their means, then it's our job to tell them. It's a recipe for disaster, this. If you're going to carry on, it's like if a doctor tells you to stop smoking, otherwise something's going to really go bad for you from a health. He's going to tell you to stop smoking, right? So we're pretty much the same.
Yeah, but you can't force people either.
No, you can't. You can advise them. You can say, look, this is what it's going to look like if you don't do it. This is how it's going to be if you carry on doing it. So the choice is yours.
But prevention is better than cure.
Absolutely.
And that's if it keeps me quiet, if it keeps me quiet,
if it keeps you sleeping at night.
Yeah. No. Yeah. If you can avoid it, do it.
Do you snore?
Oh, yes.
You snore.
You snore.
Yeah.
Probably. Yeah.
Oh, that was so. I honestly, can you come back again? Because we could talk about. What would be great is anybody's got any questions, send in to you to ask you. That would be anonymous, non-judgmental questions about IVAs.
And I do a Q&A session.
That would be amazing.
Okay, yeah.
That would be absolutely amazing. Should we do that?
Yeah, well, let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Ian, you've been amazing. I just think you're so interesting, and we will have you back in the future. Legislation might change, mightn't it?
Yeah.
It's something that changes regularly, I'm guessing?
Not really, no, but there is going to be, in a year or two, there's going to be a review of personal insolvency anyway.
Okay.
So that's but we don't know what's the insolvency service have got planned at the moment.
Right. Okay. So when things happen, we can catch up with you about it. But I think it's such a topic where there's so many layers to it, and it is hard to understand the first time around. So it'd be great to break down each point of how it works. We'll do that at some point in the future.
Fantastic. Yeah.
That'd be great. And coming up on the next podcast, we are going to be talking to a member of your team, aren't we?
Yeah, we're going to be speaking to Shaz, who's the budgeting manager in ClearStart, and he's on the ground managing his team that deals with client ad hoc requests. And so it'll be interesting to speak to him.
Follow the journey of a client.
Exactly, yeah. So we can see from start to where they are today.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, and if somebody has a question, they can just send it in to us. It's something that we can, if we don't know about it, there is somebody in the office who knows about it.
Absolutely.
When it comes to budgeting.
Yeah. If someone wants to get in touch for the budgeting side of things, it's clearstart.co.uk. Or if it's for IVAs and if you want to get through to Ian, it's AFA Insolvency.co.uk.
Thank you.
Thank you.